popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me, and Justin Brown for your movie needs. Media popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault. Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo. What is up, little biscuits and sun-dried tomatoes? It's your boy, Eddie Collins.
Guys, and it's Justin Brown.
And we are Media Popcorn. But you already knew that because you pushed play, you heard that beautiful theme song, and you know what you're about to get into. But before we spoil this 1989 John Travolta, Kirstie Alley comedy, yes?
Bruce Willis.
Yeah, Bruce Willis, that's
Bruce
right.
Willis.
Oh, my God. Before we talk about Luke Who's Talking, we have a great guest, stand-up comedian, extraordinary podcast host, writer, Josh Gondelman. How the hell are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. So excited to come here and talk about this completely ridiculous movie.
That's yeah, it's so insane. But before we dig into that, what have you been up to? And also, real quick, just want to say I really appreciate you in regards to how you represented the WGA during the strikes and really articulating what the writers were looking for and what they wanted from the studios, because there was a lot of misinterpretation and misrepresentation in the media, and so just wanted to shout you out for that.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. I really tried to be a helpful part of this big group effort, and it was really I know a very tough time on a lot of people in the industry and outside of it, but I really was inspired and truly overwhelmed by the solidarity, both from within the Writers Guild and then from the other guilds and other unions in general. I mean, we would be picketing and people from the Starbucks union would come out, Amazon union, it was really teachers. It was really incredible to feel the support of the other working people in New York. And it's not something I'm going to forget for a long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. I do have to ask though, given how ingrained you are also in the stand-up comedy world.
Yeah.
Who have you found it easier to work with? Is it writers or stand-ups?
I really love both. I love being in a writer's room and I love stand-up and let me think about who's easier. I mean, I guess the ultimate thing about doing stand-up is that nobody's really your boss for more than a few days at a time. So it is there is ultimately something about if you don't like someone you have to work with, you don't see them that often, or if you have friction with someone, you can seek out a different avenue, which is much tougher than at our writing job, where if you're oh, I'm in this position and I have creative contention with somebody, or there's somebody in this office that's difficult to collaborate with, or just personality clash, then you're kind of just well, this is who's there every day.
Yep, that makes sense. Sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
But that said, I've had great fortune to work in really great rooms with people that I'm still close with after years.
I was gonna say you're the nicest person in entertainment. I'm not even saying comedy, just in entertainment. I've met a lot of people.
I'm a get-alonger.
Yes, yeah, you're
a get-alonger. That's the new one.
That's how I feel.
You're the John Travolta of the entertainment.
That's right. I am a lot like John Travolta.
Well, this is back
bald.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about John Travolta, Justin. No, Justin. Here's the thing about John Travolta. Very much you could, personal life aside, very much like a Tom Cruise. Very few people have anything bad to say about working with John Travolta. He might be batshit crazy, but I think they had a ball on this movie. I think they had this crazy baby, and he and Kirstie Alley are just chopping it up as this weird couple that
they are really chopping it up.
I mean, okay, folks, we're talking about Look Who's Talking, 1989. Now, Josh, our producer Lluvia sent you a list of movies.
Yeah.
And you picked this one. I'm curious as to why. Why did this one pop out to you?
So it's a movie that I probably haven't seen in 30 years. And I remember seeing it when I was a little kid. And, probably I, 8 years old, like too young really to get what was going on.
Yep.
Not just the sexual stuff, but like the vibe of it is very like, it's like a movie for grown-ups. There's not even with the baby talking, there's
Yeah.
not that much that's like for kids. And I thought it would be like whenever am asked to do, have the good fortune to get to like come on a podcast and just yammer about movies, which I have no like real experience and no expertise in. I try to pick something that my wife would want to watch with me, and she signed off on this and was like, "Oh, that would be fun." Yeah. So it was a collaborative effort.
Oh, so
Yeah.
all right. So Josh, with that being said, do you have any children?
Don't have any children.
You don't have any children. Okay.
No, we have one extremely elderly dog.
Okay.
Our dog
Well,
is
we'll
You
about
bring
do
you
to be
back
have
on.
17.
of a child.
We'll bring Josh back on for Look Who's Talking Now, because that's when they get to talking dogs.
Oh, I didn't realize because Look Who's Talking 2, right? And that's when there's the second
That's where
baby.
Rosie O'Donnell is the second baby, and then the
Wow.
third one is, I think, Danny DeVito and Diane Keaton as the dogs.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, it goes real Air Buddy
Yeah.
by the third one.
It's so jarring, the like talking baby. It's like truly, I don't think, not to like get too far ahead, but I'm like, this is a really strange quality that this movie has.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that the baby. I mean, obviously, it's their thoughts, it's their inner
Yes.
monologue that we're
Yes,
hearing.
yes.
Because just the moving babies with moving mouths in movies is the creepiest thing in the world.
Yes.
And so
Well,
I
this-
appreciate that they didn't do that.
In this movie,
Well, no, the baby is moving its mouth at times.
when he
which is
becomes
weird.
yeah, as he gets older, that's what's the most unsettling, right? When he becomes kind of like a 1-year-old crawling around, you see the mouth
Yeah.
start to move a little bit, and it is not in sync with the words.
Oh no, I mean, it's not going to be in sync with the guy who start headline Die Hard. You know,
Yes.
it's going to be.
But as a baby, as an infant,
Yes.
you're right. I think it is much less unsettling when it's just like, oh, clearly this is an internal monologue. The baby's got his mouth closed and you're just like hearing the thoughts. But then, yeah, once the baby starts moving his mouth out of sync with the words, it becomes like, do I have to stop this and rewind it and start again? Are we buffering?
Yeah. A piece of trivia that our producer Lluvia found that like fascinated the hell out of me, but makes complete sense, is that this movie was heavily influential on the Klatsky Kusko animation studio and the animated series Rugrats, which came out in
Oh, I
1991
bet.
and developed for a new line of animation at the Nickelodeon network. And Bruce Willis would later go on to voice Spike in Rugrats Gone Wild, which was my least favorite Rugrats movie. But yeah, that makes complete sense, because all it is about kids and their imagination and what they talk about when adults aren't around.
Yep,
So,
totally.
Well, or how much kids understand and they're like in tune with everything happening
Yep.
around. Because
Yeah.
this kid is very much, he's just like, yeah, I know what's going on. And it's like the adults are the ones who don't know what's going on half the time.
Yeah.
which is
true.
kind
I mean, especially in this situation, because Kirstie Alley, I mean, I don't know. If she's not accounting, she can't survive. Like, she's not doing well. If she doesn't have a calculator in front of her, she does not seem to be doing well. John Travolta might be a low-key criminal.
Yeah,
or like some
he
kind of
definitely. So
he's
it's
going
so
through her mail
funny.
at one point, right?
Yeah,
Or somebody's
because
mail.
he started sending his grandfather's mail to her apartment. It just feels
He
like
doesn't have a home.
it's so. One thing I appreciate about it is no, he lives in Jersey, I think.
He lives in Jersey.
Yeah.
It
lives
was
in,
so that they could get his
headquarters, right?
grandfather into a
The assisted living.
assisted living home in the city. I think was the move. But it's also like, what a weird grift. It's like he doesn't know any other people, and it's very like, I do appreciate one thing about this movie is that it's very movie, right? In that like things happen because that's how they happen in this movie. And I think nowadays you watch a movie like this and there's like a little too much grounding sometimes, where like you go so far into like, so Kirstie Alley is an accountant, a single woman who's having an affair with a married man, right? And I feel like now if this movie was made, you get too much grounding about like, why is she attracted to this older man that can't commit to her? And it's just like, I don't know, she just thinks he's hot. That's fine.
Molly, if you don't kiss me now, I'm gonna burst. Okay. Folks, I saw this movie when I was 3.5 years old. I actually looked at the release date. It's October 1989. This is the first movie I've ever seen. I remember being in a movie theater, seeing all those sperm. I remember all the music, the needle drops. I
Beach
remember
Boys,
I remember
Talking
all of it.
Heads.
Yep. Like My Love, Open the Door. I remember
Yep.
all these things. I remember some weird John Travolta moments, but I particularly remember that opening because I thought that was such a weird thing for a man to say. Like, I don't even fully comprehend the world, but just Molly, if you don't kiss me right, I'm gonna burst. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, that's the nastiest shit in the world
It's
you could
so
say to
nasty.
a woman. Like, that's so gross.
That's so raunchy. But it makes sense in the context of this movie where you see so many sperm on camera.
And just going towards that, and just running.
At the beginning and the end, mind you. So we
Yeah.
get we
That's
get
the end. Oh,
John
the
Travolta's sperm
credits
at
at
the
the
end.
end, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, which is it's so funny that they're like you know how you see some movie you see like a Marvel movie and you're like, "Oh, that's Nick Fury. That's foreshadowing for the next movie." And then in this movie you're like, "Oh, that cum is going to be important in the next movie."
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's wild. Mind you, Molly tells the guy that she's having the affair with, what's his name? Albert.
Albert?
She
Yeah.
she says, "You're a great father, great in bed, and my biggest account." And I was like, oh, that's not a good reason to just let this guy hit it raw. But hey, it's 90. Well, it's the
Yeah.
80s into the 90s.
was
You know,
the
it's a wild
80s.
time.
Yeah.
Well, it's
They were just
also
going
the
for it.
fact is that Albert, he doesn't come across as a guy that you definitely want to be sleeping with outside of the fact that maybe he's rich. You know what I'm saying? He's not very attentive. He doesn't seem to really care. He's just
Well, he's going through a selfish phase, Justin. A selfish
I
phase.
thought that stuff was really funny, honestly, and that felt very modern, like
Yes.
him being like, "I just need some me time. I've talked to my therapist," and this feels very like it felt very like girls, or you know what I mean, like it's very like therapy speak, weaponized therapy speak, which feels like such a modern thing. And so it's so funny, like I mean, obviously Amy Heckerling wrote and directed this movie, and so you like those like really interesting kind of incisive flourishes, you're like, oh yeah, of course she's so good. But and that stuff was so funny where he would go like he left his mistress for his other mistress and said that he like couldn't handle a commitment to her now, and it's just like that stuff is really, I think, sharp in a way that some of the other stuff is like a little too kooky.
I did like how Amy Heckerling handled the whole John Travolta, Mikey, who's Molly's son's dynamic. It was less about like, hey, you need a man to do like these things, because it showed Molly really doing the work as a single mother and providing for her son. But for Mikey and John Travolta's character, James, it was more like, no, he just needs someone to have another connection with, like a male presence to have that connection with, so he can learn that side of himself versus like you need this man to take care of you, because John Travolta's hanging on by a thread.
Yeah,
James is not doing well. There's no way he's making money. Like he's trying to fly too. I'm just like, oh, that comes into play in the second one, by the way.
Yes, it comes into play in the second.
I didn't know that. I've never seen the
there's a
second
whole
one.
pilot subplot, right, Justin?
Yeah, he becomes a pilot.
That's right. Yes,
Hey,
I
good
just
for
remember.
him.
Yeah,
But
he finally makes it.
You're right though. That is so sweet that like it's not like you need someone to teach you how to be a man, little boy. It's just like he's really tender with the kid, and they like dance around and they hang out, and it's like kind of the opposite of those movies where it's like some guy accidentally has to take care of a kid and it's like, oh, can a man be a dad? And this is just like he just is so psyched for that part of it. And I think that's really like a cute feature of the movie and very heartwarming.
So, but there are things about this movie which, as a parent, sent up some red flags.
Sure.
Yeah. Like when she passes out, he steals the child.
That was so bonkers.
That was insane. He was like, yo, she punched him so hard. And before, as a kid, I was like, that's so violent. Like, I was just like, oh my God. But then I'm like, no, that's very justified.
Yeah,
Yes. And it's also just the fact is like, he didn't get arrested. The police didn't just beat him mercilessly. Like
they didn't take him to the docks.
Yeah, like what is going on? Like you can't do that in New York. There would be an ABB or APB, whatever the thing is. They would have had like the entire city scouring for this guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
especially in
that
the
part is
because
80s.
she
pretty
called the
scary.
police. This wasn't like she waited for him to come back. She called the police on him.
Yes.
That is
Like,
true. Like, how did he not get caught? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild.
and but also, why would he think that that was okay?
Right.
Because he's a dummy. James is a psychopath. The only
He's
thing
a
he's good at
psychopath.
is emotion. He's emotionally intelligent, which is why he's able to like talk to the orderly, like get people to like help him out and stuff like that. He's a very friendly person, but there's no logical reasoning up here.
I mean, even him going into the hospital in scrubs is like a
That's so
completely
crazy.
outrageous maneuver.
Listen, listen. If my wife is in, well, look, my wife's pregnant right now, so I'm looking. I'm the next 30 days. I'm gonna have another child.
Whoa, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Now, if for some reason I can't take her to the hospital, and a taxi driver or
You know what?
update an Uber driver
Sure.
takes her to the hospital, and then when I get there, the Uber driver is in scrubs delivering that baby. I'm going nuts. Going nuts.
You can go nuts all you want, but like I'd be more worried about that bill at the end of the day. Because once they
Oh,
turn
yeah,
off
yeah,
that clock, that's gonna be a problem. $800 plus a premium surcharge.
And so I
yeah,
think
so-
we've kind of talked around it, but like one of the weirdest parts of this movie is that the baby is constantly, and that is that's like the selling point of the movie, right? Is that it's this rom-com, like a fairly traditional rom-com with Kirstie Alley as a single mom who's like
Yep.
really intent on looking for a father for her child, and she's dating around and
she's
can't
getting some
find anybody.
terrible suitors. Oh my
Really
goodness.
bad.
And
A lot
Kirstie
of
Alley,
duds.
okay, Kirstie Alley, like this might just be because it's the first movie I ever saw. I had a huge crush on her because of this movie, right?
She
And I
was
watched
hot
this
back in
again.
the day. This is
Yeah, I'm like, she wasn't bad
hot
looking.
back-
So why is
No.
she getting put up with the dude who looks like what's his
Yeah.
name from Scarface? Like, it's not a good look. It
A lot of
wasn't.
bad dudes. And John Travolta's
Yeah.
under her nose the whole time, and they finally get together at the end. But in the meantime, the baby, voiced by Bruce Willis,
Yeah,
is
we didn't even
making
talk
all
about that.
sorts of wisecracks that nobody hears.
Well, also, it's just the fact is that when the baby is still in the womb,
Yeah.
baby is talking.
And it's not, you don't just hear it like in the scene. They cut to inside the womb,
Yeah.
and you see
Yeah,
the
the
fetus,
growing fetus,
and then
yeah.
you hear Bruce Willis
So
voicing
insane.
the fetus, which is like so visceral. And I also find like even the like sperm heading towards the egg during the opening sequence, I'm like, this is not like pleasant.
Yeah, and it's breaking through the uterine wall. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm in. Oh, you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm so glad you said that, Josh, because this movie has haunted me for 30 plus years.
Mhm.
And it's just it's a very graphic movie.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
so funny because the sex is so muted, right? Like they're clearly
there's, like,
attracted
none.
to each other, and right, there's not a ton other than like I'm gonna burst is the most explicit thing they say, but there is like it's biologically explicit more than it is like sexually explicit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when they're about to hook up, when John Travolta's about to take Molly to Happyville, she has a vision of them being like having like 6 kids,
Yeah.
living in destitute, like in dirt, like Angela's ashes. And he's like, I got some cabbage. It might be edible. Who knows? Hey. And she's just like, that can't be my life. I'm like, that's how little she thinks of James, is that he's
Yeah.
going to have them living in squalor
Yeah.
where they're fighting over cabbage.
Yep.
But then again, as Brandon and I know from the sequels, he becomes a pilot, and they don't have to live, in a shanty.
Those little flourishes too around the edges, right? Like they are very they are very like rounded in terms of their professional life versus their personal life, right? Like James drives a cab because he's trying to get flight hours, right? He needs a real job,
Mhm.
taxi driver, while he's trying to get these flight hours, and he keeps going into the flight school and they don't have much for him, and he's disappointed because his life isn't going the way he wants. And Kirstie Alley is an accountant who is, to me, it's so funny that she's the child of 2 accountants. And
Yeah.
my favorite joke in the whole movie is when she's talking about her mother, Olympia Dukakis, is talking about meeting her father.
She's
and
so
being,
great. She's always great as the mom.
she's
Yeah.
so good. Was she the one in Moonstruck too?
Yep. We
Yep.
reviewed that
Yep.
a few weeks
Yep.
ago.
Hell yeah. And there she's talking about like what a charismatic guy her father is, and she cuts to him and he's reading like accounting monthly magazine.
Yeah, and he's just like
and just
cackling.
laughing his ass off. I thought that joke was so good.
Yeah, there are some really funny moments that surprised me because I'm an adult now. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, that's funny. And the kid stuff is still terrifying. I mean, when Mikey gets born and you get the first person perspective of him coming out the womb,
Yeah.
and then he's looking at the people and he looks at the doctors like, who are you? Like I laugh but also scream at the same time. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck, man?
It's
Do we have
very
those stuff?
unsettling.
That must be crazy for a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine as
Totally.
babies, we were all like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Who are
It's
these?
so-
Why
put
are
me
they
back,
wearing-
right? He's saying put me back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, put me back.
Yeah, I mean, but it was a very visceral. Some movies have to prepare you for like seeing moments that like kind of reenact birth,
Yeah.
and that was a pretty graphic with the umbilical cord and stuff. I was like, oh, this actually might be footage from a real birth that they're
Yeah.
mixing in with Kirstie Alley and stuff.
Yeah. The umbilical cord, I was like, oh, that it is, it wasn't like super bloody and
Yeah.
whatever, but like there was like the cutting of the umbilical cord, and I was like, oh, this is like, it was realer for something that is so silly at times. That moment was like realer than I expected. And then again, to mix in the like footage of sperm penetrating an egg
Yeah.
with a movie where there's also like a smart ass 33-year-old baby.
This would be a really bad movie for anyone, like a young man that was going on a date. Like this would be a terrible first date movie. You
Yeah.
are not gonna get laid. You're probably not gonna
No,
finish the
no.
popcorn, like
Mhm.
because you're just gonna be like,
Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing for me is like I feel like for people in a certain age range, this is like some of the first sex ed that they got.
100%, no doubt about
oh
it.
yeah, for sure.
But it was the most like real and poignant sex ed that
Mhm.
they've probably ever gotten up until the point where they were, high school or they had started having sex themselves.
Yeah, no
So,
doubt.
like,
But they never mentioned condoms, though, right?
Well, you bet.
No co-
I mean,
It's the
even
80s,
the-
baby.
I know, but no character, even the best friend, who was beating up the married dude
yeah,
when they catch him with the
Albert.
marketing chick,
Yep.
like no one mentions like, hey, wrap it up or make
Yeah,
sure.
why
like,
wouldn't you use a condom or like?
Yeah, it was just
they-
weird.
Yeah, and it's.
Well, I mean,
think they-
Albert's a very rich man, so he's not going to use a condom. He already had one kid, and now he has a second kid. Oh, actually, that just made me think of something. How is Albert not paying a dime of child support?
I was thinking the same thing, and it feels like I understood her not going, concealing his identity. Like I understand her giving him that courtesy, but for him not to show any financial support, that felt like really
That
off base.
as a only child of a single mother, and like my wife, she has a single mother, like even though the dad was around and stuff, it's weird. It's like it's obviously everyone has their own situation and stuff,
Sure.
but for some reason there's something ironic about how much single mothers want to protect the father. Whether it's like
Interesting.
we don't want to force them to pay child support because they might just be like, F it, I'm just gonna pay, or I'm gonna disappear. Like,
Yeah.
because there are some dads. I know one that like he's like, if you make me pay child support, they ain't gonna ever see me because I'm either gonna
Wow.
quote unquote be working so much that they're not gonna see me, or like I don't want to have to deal with you. I just gonna send you some money, and I don't ever want to have to deal with you as the baby mom.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Word.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Jab to the face. Jab to the face.
That's why you
Wow.
just do everything you can to protect the kids from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just terrible. Like, but that's the thing is all it takes is, one burst and all these things can happen.
One burst.
I'm sorry. That phrasing fucked me up, man. When I
And
heard
he
that
says it a couple times, like a couple different times in the movie. Like this is his move.
yes.
And-
Yeah. That's his move. That's his thing. Like
and then
what?
he does burst. Literally he bursts during like a
Yeah.
quick dream sequence that she has.
Yep.
His head bursts. It was so graphic.
Yeah.
Also, I think Kirstie Alley in this movie is the reason why immediately I think like, because Scarlett Johansson's not much older than me. I think immediately why when I saw her in Ghost World before she blew up because of Lost in Translation and Match Point, I was like, I think she's kind of sexy because I think it was the voice, that kind of deep,
Oh.
gravelly,
Mhm.
Mm.
feminine voice. I think like it's very Kirstie Alley, like because I was like, oh, Scarlett Johansson kind of sounds like her.
Fair.
We just rewatched, my wife and I rewatched all of Cheers early in the pandemic,
Oh
and
wow.
there's like arguably a little too much Cheers, but we watched all of it. And
How many
Kirstie Alley
seasons is
is
it?
11,
Well, there's 11 seasons of
11
Cheers.
seasons.
Oh,
Yeah.
When did Frasier get his spinoff?
Before,
Does
was
he
it before
leave?
the end?
He leaves,
Yeah,
right?
he leaves.
Okay,
Yes, he leaves, I think, before the end. And then he's in
got it.
Seattle. Unclear how he started working in radio. Another complaint for another podcast. But Kirstie Alley is so funny and charming
Yeah,
on Cheers too. Like I forget because like she kind of got, she wasn't working as much toward the end of her life and she was kind of politically out there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but she's like very funny and talented.
I
Yeah.
know. Rest in peace to Kirstie Alley because she passed away a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. I mean, she was. I didn't realize that Chrissy Alley was, as advanced age as she was. She was 71 when she passed away,
I
2 years ago.
Oh
I
wow,
didn't
I didn't
realize
know
that
that.
either. Because
Yeah,
that's older than Bruce Willis and John Travolta are now, I think. I think
yeah.
Travolta's 70 and Bruce Willis is 69, which I thought he was older because of the health problems he's been having.
Yeah, yeah, but that's the thing is like, and this the subplot with James is that his father is in a mental health facility because he's got dementia and like it's getting harder and harder for him to take care of himself. He also has these like violent mood swings because Kirstie Alley gets called as like the other emergency contact for him.
Yeah.
And I will say the second to last time I went to go see my grandfather in his facility in the Bronx, there was a gentleman there who could not be more than like mid 40s at the latest at like, and he was in this center for a lot of people that have Alzheimer's and
Wow.
dementia. And like, yeah, I don't know if it's like environmental stuff or just biology. I don't know what makes it early onset for some people, but it does happen.
Yeah. Really sad.
Yeah.
But it's very funny too. Like, I mean, I think this is like a meta joke of the film that this is the opposite to like go the other way is that John Travolta, I think, is 1 year older than Bruce Willis. And so they're them playing adult man and 1 year old
Yeah.
baby is like a very fun, like, contrast.
So looking at it, Chrissy Alley in this film is about like 38. So she's 30. She looks great for a 38-year-old
Yeah.
woman
And she's
playing.
supposed to be playing 32, right? Or something like that.
I think
Is
so.
she?
I think they say 32 or 34.
Oh,
It's younger
she,
than significantly
'Cause
younger than
her-
where we are now.
Yeah, because her mom was saying that, right? She
Mm.
was saying like you're this age and you
yeah,
don't,
yeah,
no
yeah, you're
kids,
right.
not married. Yeah. And it's
Now,
yeah.
piece of trivia: John Travolta. This is John Travolta's first major acting role in 4 years, following a series of critical and commercial failures, beginning with Moment by Moment. Haven't even heard of that.
Me
And
either.
continued through the 80s with Blowout, Two of a Kind, Perfect, and The Expert. And because of the commercial and critical failing of those films, studios and directors were reluctant to hire him as they felt he was a has-been.
Wow. I mean I remember that from the comeback that happened with Pulp Fiction,
Yep.
where like I feel like the narrative around that was like Quentin Tarantino gave his career like a whole new life at that point, and he hadn't really worked much in a while. But those movies from the 80s, like those must have bombed so bad that I like can't
I,
come up with a single fact about any of them.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've never heard those titles, but I think this was his first commercial hit since Staying Alive, which was in 1983.
Wow.
And the
And that was a
crazy ass
sequel to
sequel
Saturday Night Fever.
yeah, it's so fucking nuts when he wants to be on Broadway.
Oh yeah.
And but I think the problem with this franchise though is this is a huge hit. Like it made $297 million off
Wow.
a $7.5 million budget. But I think they ran it into the ground because, like I mentioned, by the time we get to Lucas Talking Now, it's dogs.
Yeah.
And that's what I remember even as a kid being like, that's fucking crazy. Like
Yeah.
that's a bridge too far. Yeah.
As I was rewatching this, I was thinking about how if there was no talking baby, you know, if there was no voice of Bruce Willis, the movie still would have stood up, right? Like if you had just muted all his dialogue, you'd be like, this is kind of a charming romantic comedy on its own.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I 100% agree with that because like the relationship between John Travolta and Kirstie, it was something I was just like, man, I hope they get together.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you want
And
them to get together, even though, you know, let's be honest, Molly probably beats James quite a bit. She has like a temper problem. I'm not misreading that, right? She was like, she had a temper.
But she only hit him because he kidnapped her baby.
No, but
Yeah.
well, remember she was hitting him when he was speeding through the city to
Oh,
get her to the
yeah,
hospital.
that's right.
She starts
I mean,
immediately
at the
slapping
same
him.
time,
Yeah.
like like
That's
he
right.
shouldn't be speeding like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's,
Frank,
you know, he's
he's
a
on the
good
labor.
driver.
It was
That was
it
wild.
was but yeah, I agree. I was rooting for them too. Like it felt if there was no talking baby, you'd just go like, "Oh, they have this weird relationship that is like kind of heightened for the movie, but like you believe that they get along despite the weird circumstances." And you're like, he's right there the whole time. And you see him like kind of being ahead of her, being like, I uh I'm trying to make this happen
This could work,
romantically.
yeah.
Yeah, sabotaging the other date, which is like kind
Yeah,
of
that was
funny.
wild.
Yeah. Very like move like that, but that part, like again, there's some parts that are like very movie where it's like
Mm.
weird of him to like tell that lie to sabotage the date instead of just being like, can we go out on a date?
You know what? I think that's something Brandon would do. I'm just Brandon.
I mean, if
he's not even fighting it. I feel like that's something Brandon would do.
if I had a crush on somebody and I'm like doing this work and I'm like, man, there's a real future here possibly. You know what it is? It's unless like I meet the person and the guy and I'm like, oh, this is actually a really good dude. This could actually work
Yeah,
better for
yeah.
her. Like, but that guy immediately, like, as soon as he saw him, like
These
he
guys are
knew he
all
had the
duds.
toupee. He was like, all right, like this guy's already starting off with falsities.
Yep.
You know, this ain't gonna work, right? That's why you had Mikey pull off the toupee and stuff like
Yep.
that. But I think it would have been funny though if that had, like, because it did backfire. Where she's like, "Oh, I think it actually looked the ball had looked sexy."
Yeah,
It would have been funny if they had a quick cut of John Travolta, like, "God damn it!" Like,
I
like
know.
rats. You know what I mean?
It's but yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it did backfire, but then again, still a drip. All these guys are such losers.
They really are. Like, you tell me in 1989, Kirstie Alley couldn't get anything better than the
The guy
dudes. I
being
mean,
like,
obviously,
I had a colonoscopy, and you see him tell it through the whole date. You know what other scene I thought was really nice towards the beginning. I'm sorry to like be jumping around so much,
all good.
but I do
No,
think
you
like
got it.
you see, even though it's like this, the kind of conceit is so silly. There's just so much nice stuff going on, like her realizing that she's pregnant and that 80s pregnancy test. My wife was like, that's like a COVID test. She's like dripping things into other things.
Yeah, and then the guy just rubs her belly. That's the extent of
Yep.
this.
But when she's like, she sees the turn whatever, I don't know what
Yeah.
kind of alchemy was happening in 1989 in a pregnancy test, but she's like, no, and then like cut to the reverse shot and she's at the doctor and the doctor is like, yes, and it's like, oh man, that's such a neat, quick way of doing that, and you're like, this is like very, there's so much like cool, smart, sharp filmmaking. And then there's also the Bruce Willis stuff, which I'm like, I don't think much of this works for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unsettling, just because it is an adult voice in a baby. Like maybe if they tried a child actor, it could have worked. But Bruce Willis, very big at the time, it was a
Yep.
huge get for this. Speaking of being, the stars of this movie, so Michael Keaton, Mel Gibson, Jeff Goldblum, Nicolas Cage, and Kurt Russell were all considered for the role of James. But who do you all think? And remember, this is 1989. Who do you all think was the number one choice that the studio wanted for James?
Nick Cage.
No, it's not in the list I just read to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's just from that list that you gave?
No, it's not from that list. I just
Not from
named
that
some
list.
big stars or big
Nice.
up and coming stars in the late 80s, early 90s. But
Andrew
there's-
McCarthy.
oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. Steven Gutenberg was offered this. So you're kind of in a similar plane. But
Okay.
it's not this person. Think,
Oh, that's such a different charm than a Travolta, too.
but think of really big TV show at the time.
89. Michael J. Fox?
Close-ish.
Okay.
But think that big, like, because he was on what, Family Ties or
Yeah.
Yeah, Lluvia is gonna give a hint in the chat.
Okay.
Hold on.
What's the hint, Lluvia?
They had twins in the show. That's a real hint.
Oh, was it Full House? Was the show Full House?
Yes. But who's the actor?
John Stamos?
Yep.
Whoa.
That was the number one choice for
Interesting.
Rolla James, but the producers of Full House would not let him off his contract for the movie.
That's fascinating because he was never that big a movie star.
Imagine
right?
that he had done this movie
This
that could have blown
changed
him up.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was such a, I mean, it was, again, like you said, huge hit.
Yeah, I don't think that would have worked. I don't think that would work.
It could have, because we never seen him get a shot at the feature film.
No, he wouldn't have worked in this role because he's too much of a handsome guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
What do you say about John Travolta? He's a handsome dude. That butt shit is a classic.
They're different classes. John Stamos is like, a woman meets John Stamos, they're just like, oh my God, that's John Stamos. You know what I'm saying? Especially him in the late 80s, early 90s. He has that kind of rocker type of, he's too cool for that role.
Okay.
I think he's too cool for the role.
I also think he has less like whimsical charm than John Travolta does in this movie. Like, even as a dad I think you're right, in Full House, he's kind of like a cool dad. Like, can you believe this guy has 2 little kids? And John Travolta really plays this as like, I just love hanging out with this little
kid.
guy.
Yeah. I really like this kid.
Yep, totally. That's so interesting. Steve Guttenberg, though, I think could have. I think that would have been fun too.
Yeah,
I feel like he would have fell right in that, but that'd be so 80s to see. Steve
Truly.
Now, for Molly's role, Gina Davis was considered for the role of Molly.
Okay.
But she turned it down because she couldn't handle shooting a movie involving a birth sequence, especially after her birth sequence in The Fly, which came out in 1986.
Oh, yeah. This is a little less visceral than Cronenberg, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But it's it's just interesting when you oversee like the alternate universes of what could have been. I think they struck gold with Kirstie Alley and John Travolta. I think they both needed a hit for various reasons, so I think they gave it their all. I mean, you have to be comfortable in order to have that vulnerable, weird sing-along dance sequence they had in the kitchen where he burst through the doors like the Kool-Aid Man just thrust just like John can't help it. He has to dance in every fucking movie.
He's got to dance.
Because in the second one, Justin, refresh my memory if I'm wrong, doesn't he have a dance sequence on the children's playground?
I don't remember. I
swear to God, I think he has a dance sequence on the playground. I remember
the second one of this.
I remember it being insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean,
you two continue to talk. I'm gonna find this. I'm gonna share my screen because it's insane.
I feel like in the second one, it was like heavy on like the kid and he's being potty trained. Because I remember there's a scene in the second one.
Oh, with the toilet talking, right?
Yeah, where the toilet's talking to him. He's like, "Give me that peepees and cacas. Give me that peepees and cacas."
Weird.
And it's like a nightmare that he's has. I'm just like, this is crazy. This is like the craziest.
Fascinating.
I remember that to this day because my nephew was around that time when he was potty training and I would say it's like, that's right, give it the peepees and cacas because I thought no, like I'm just saying something very crazy to this kid and I'm gonna
this series is actually really jarring in regards to its visuals and like content, but I forgot Gilbert Gottfried's in the scene. Yeah, so we're gonna
everyone deserves
rest in peace, Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, it's and technically John Travolta's career right now, but it's okay.
Elvis, my man.
Come on, dance. Come on, damn it, I'll slap you. Dance.
Yeah.
3, twist.
My friends say I'm out. Is a bug. I'm in love.
Ow!
I'm
me.
all shook up.
Follow him. Follow him. Here, I'll give you $1.
Well, my hand is shaking and my knees are weak. I can't seem to stand on my own 2 feet. Who do you think when you have such luck? I'm in love. I'm all shook up.
Show off. Get out of here.
Well, please don't ask me what's on my mind.
Okay. Yep. See,
That's all I needed.
he can't stop dancing. It's insane.
It's so funny.
Well, why
But
is
I
he
do-
dressed like that? He's a pilot. He looks
That's
like he's
very
Elvis.
funny. And in the first one, him dancing with the baby is such like a natural way to entertain a kid.
Yeah.
You know, like it's such a it like really fits seamlessly into the movie and is very charming, I find.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's not like that was very much like Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing, where it's like nobody puts baby in the corner. I'm just gonna take over her dance and take all the spotlight for myself. That's what he just did with all those children.
With the little kids, yeah.
He's like, "Hey, moms, look at me." Like,
Yep.
wait, what?
Yes. That he comes off as the dad. Well, I'm not gonna say a single dad. He's like the parents broke up, and he's the dad that comes into the school and he's trying to bang the moms and the teacher.
Oh, he's like Phil Hartman from Jingle All the Way,
Mm.
but without trying as hard. Because remember, he isn't really trying, and all the moms want to hook up with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
Yeah,
funny. I
like-
forgot that part of Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, Jingle All the Way, Josh. If you haven't, do yourself a favor.
I
This
haven't seen that
coming
in a long
holiday
time. I saw it in
season.
theaters.
It's same. It's insane, and I'm pretty sure, Josh. Remember this tidbit when you watch it again. I'm 100% sure Sinbad's character does not actually have a kid. He was Turbo Man for himself. Watch it
think
with that
that's right.
context, and you'll be like, I really don't think he has a kid.
Wow.
It's insane.
It'll mess you up. It'll mess you up.
That's so bleak. That it's Sinbad and Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
Yeah, and it's back in the day when they try to make Arnold just full American. They never adjust his Austrian accent. They're just like, yeah, that's Carl. Like, they're not-
And the fact that he's fucking huge.
Yeah, that's always so funny.
Normal everyday dad.
Well, it's I always think that's so funny in a movie where it's like a guy that kind of becomes an action hero at some, like, obviously that's just like a more like a feel good kids family movie, but like some movie where The Rock plays like a normal guy who gets pushed too far, and you're like, hey, why is that accountant fucking enormous?
Yeah.
Like, no one ever
Yeah.
asks that.
That's funny. Okay. So there's a few questionable comments. Obviously, it's the late 80s, early 90s. There's some offensive
Yeah.
comments made, derogatory terms made here and there and stuff. And then I did write down one. I didn't know if this is offensive, but I think the grandfather asked, "Who's this Yutz?" And I was like, "Is that an offensive term?" I didn't Google it, but I was like, "What does that mean?"
I think it's like a schmuck.
Okay.
Like, I think it's like that. Like it's an insult, but I don't think it's a slur in the best
Okay.
in
No,
my
no,
experience.
Cool. Okay. I
There was
like,
one that really jumped out at me that the baby said, and I was like, "Yikes!"
Oh, which one? What scene was that?
Where
oh,
he uses what we would call now the R slur.
oh
when
yeah.
he
Okay. I wrote that
described
down.
how he looked in like kind of
That's
the
right.
goofy, fancy outfit that she puts him in to take him to see his biological father, and I was like, "Damn, that lands so hard!" And now, like, you're just like, "Yikes!" And back then, you're just like, "Yeah, that's what someone would say."
Yep. I mean, there's also like, it's very 90s. So, even though a woman wrote it, like, I think she was very much like, but this is how guys talk about stuff. Like, because the dad, I think, tells John Travolta over the phone, is like, oh, when this is so insane. When James is saying goodbye to Mikey, because he's like, hey, I can't really be around anymore because
Yeah.
me and your mom, like, it just won't happen. And it's weird. He tells Mikey, hey, like, my dad said, you don't even got to hit her, even if she's asking for it. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
And Kirstie Alley's listening, like, oh, I'm like, this is so fucking crazy.
Yeah, just a couple of things, but then there were also a couple of things that that landed like, oh, I can actually see, like, it's stuff that you're like, this is in the world of this movie, this makes sense. Like her kind of like freaking out about her weight when she's pregnant, right? Where
yep.
you're like, oh, that's like a thing that there are philosophies of people that are like, don't, just like accept your body. But like it also is very reasonable that like with the culture that we still live in, people don't feel that way. So you're like, oh, that's so interesting that is such a, you know what I mean? It feels like maybe it would be less of a point now unless that really was saying something about the character. But this was just like she's so steeped in like not wanting to gain these whatever 20 pounds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because when she's looking at things, she's like, yeah, as her weight's going up, she's just like, oh no. I'm just like, well, I mean, you're growing a child inside.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. And it wasn't otherwise part of her, like, it wasn't otherwise part of her personality to be like, I have to keep my figure or whatever. It was just like alarming. Yeah, when she was pregnant.
It was interesting because she was also commenting on how her boobs got bigger.
Oh, right.
And then you know, clearly John Travolta likes big boobs because he and Mikey are checking out that flight attendant, the woman at the airport.
I found that slightly inconsistent because there was already a joke about how when she was nursing, her boobs were big.
Bruce Willis called her breasts jumbos, and I remember that line as a kid. I learned all the wrong lessons from this as a child. Like, Mom, what were you doing? I did find the scene when she's doing the accounting, and Mikey's in the corner. He has his own little calculator. That
really
was so
cute, very funny.
I used to do stuff like that with my mom's job when I would go with her. I would like pretend to help and or sell stuff and like things like that. I was like, oh yeah, like that's what you do when you're a single mom. You got to bring your kid to work sometimes.
Yep. And I felt like the family of accountants stuff was like very fun and interesting. Like we didn't have to know that about them, you know, like, but it was fun that like this is the family business essentially.
Yep. Sorry, Justin.
I also just like the fact that it's just like that John Travolta came into this film. Like I think we mentioned it earlier. It's like not as the hero, but it's like not the dad that you wanted, but the dad that the kid needed.
Totally.
You know? So it didn't feel very
like Batman.
It is forced. It is forced.
Yeah.
I mean, it is forced down your throat. But at the same time, it was more of his care for the child that won Kirstie Alley's character over, because she was also, I mean, she was going for the rich guy.
Yes.
Going for a guy that had money and things like that. And that's why it wasn't going to work between her and somebody like John Travolta, like a normal guy. And then, you know, after a while, she realizes like, hey, you know, I can either go for a rich guy who really doesn't care about anything like the baby's father, or I could go for somebody who actually cares about me and my
and cares
son.
about the baby. Yeah. I thought, I agree with you. And I think that something nice about their relationship was that it wasn't just that he used the baby as a way to get close to her. He liked hanging out with the baby and was being helpful to her, right? Like, yeah, I'll babysit, who cares? I can do it. And then like really develop this relationship with the kid. And it wasn't just like, ooh, I'm gonna like babysit and then I'll sit her. You know what I mean? It was like it felt very genuine in a way that made the movie a lot more a lot more pleasant to watch than if he was like a scheming creep. Like the only schemes he did was the mail thing, which is so weird.
It was really odd. And also a crime, like a federal
totally crime. A crime, extremely elaborate for him to have to show up while she was getting the mail so that he could get that mail and she didn't just throw it away or whatever.
So basically he was stalking her.
Yeah, well, he was already in the building though.
Yeah.
He didn't even need her to come, really. There's a scenario where she's gone. Like he's gone by the time she gets home.
No, but she put the mail up on the thing, like for the letter carrier to take it away. And then when she walked away, he stole it. So he had to be there to be like, oh, you're supposed to leave the mail here. So the guy takes it. Because otherwise she might have just like brought it up to her apartment and you never would have seen it.
Which is what she's been doing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Such an elaborate ruse.
So many of these storylines could have gone dark real quick.
100%.
I wrote down like with the Albert kept saying like, you know, I'm going to leave my wife and we're going to be together. And I know you're pregnant with my kid, yada, yada. I was like, man, this could go match point real quick where he just like, he lures her back to her house and bang. Like there's some, dude, that's what happens at match point. It's not, it's crazy.
I agree that so much of it could have gotten so much darker.
Especially in 89 in New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When cocaine was the drug of choice for like rich people, you know, it was the Wild West in some respects in regards to like child care and like women's health rights and all this stuff. Yeah, man,
Yeah.
they could have gone real crazy.
Where is the airfield that he took the baby to that he was flying out of? Is it like Long Island? Westchester?
LaGuardia, maybe, or JFK.
Yeah, maybe. That sounds right.
It might be JFK. I would say probably.
That's so far from where she lives.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Unless they go to a private airfield and they're going out of Westchester.
Yeah.
But even
Totally.
then, like she lives in
And
Manhattan,
that's
so
further. I mean, that's further. No, but that's the
Yeah.
same. Like, remember when? Oh, wait. Actually, here's a good question. When he takes her on a flight,
Yeah.
where's the baby?
Great question.
He's the babysitter.
did he leave?
The
Oh no,
baby.
they have like a nanny that speaks Spanish that like no one can speak to because no one speaks Spanish. Remember,
Right.
there's some woman that's in the apartment,
Right.
Yeah,
Housekeeping.
which is insane because given how safety prone she is
Yeah.
and how cautious she is. I'm just saying, be true to the character. That character would not leave her child with someone that they can't communicate with.
Mm.
Sure.
I'm just
And she-
saying.
Unless she was
Unless she had to go on that plane.
desperate.
You really had to go on the plane.
Gotta get on
Um,
that.
But it's also so interesting because like 89 felt like the kind of peak of the rest of America being so afraid of New York. Like,
Mm,
and so it's so funny that it's like a hectic place in this movie, but not a perilous one.
yeah, except when you go to that, elderly person's facility because
Right.
those orderlies were out of control. One
They'll
took a
steal your
bribe.
candy.
Yeah, one took a bribe to give the candy, but clearly didn't stick to the schedule.
Yeah.
Which I
It's
see
not
that
a
happen.
bribe.
Well,
It's not a bribe.
they gave a little tip to the orderly or whatever, but they're not because they're not consistent on their schedule, so they're not going to be able to control that.
Yeah.
My grandfather also has a paranoia where he thinks that everyone's stealing his candy or sodas. Like when he was down in Florida at his facility, every time I go to visit him, he's like, "Yeah, Brandon, things are going pretty good, but these motherfuckers keep stealing my Pepsis." And I'm like, "Why would they steal your Pepsis, Papa?" He's like, "Because it's delicious and I get them on sale." And I was like, "Well, Papa, did you have a Pepsi today?" He's like, "Yeah." "Did you have a Pepsi yesterday?" "Yeah." It's like, "Well, you might be the culprit." Like, he was like,
Maybe you're drinking your Pepsis.
but I had to tell him that because he was like, "Next time they come in my room, I'm gonna do a citizen's arrest." I'm like, "Papa, you are 6'6".
no.
You cannot be just randomly arresting people,
Yeah.
especially these white people down here. Like, you are the one drinking your Pepsis." Plot twist, it's you.
You guys just fill them in about the sale. They can get their own.
Yeah, but now he just like occasionally will complain about some candy missing, but it's not egregious the way it was for his Pepsis. He used to get really upset about that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a-
that it's such a like all the kind of it's so zany and so the consequences like I don't know, it just felt like a time where like everybody in America seemed to believe that New York was like goth, and this movie is like so bright and like so full of like hijinks and stuff like that and so little like bodily peril, which is really I thought that's like it was extremely like light and breezy in that way.
Except when you
Well, I
put
mean,
a black man in charge of the old dude, because he was just like this old guy. He knows he has dementia. Is holding an infant.
He was
and
so
he's just like
cold.
he's like, "You two are good, right?" And he just laughed like he
Yep.
just walked out.
And he
The
was
kid tried
ready to
steal a
kick him out.
car.
He was ready to kick him out of the
So crazy.
facility.
Yeah, we
And
didn't
then
even talk
he
about
gets in
Mikey
the
trying to
back-
drive the car.
Yeah, he gets in the back of a car. I'm like,
Yep.
what? No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That baby.
he gets into a car that's
Yeah.
hooked up to a tow, and he's just sitting in it, just working. I'm like, that was so nuts.
Yeah.
That was so nuts.
Well,
He's
this
going
also
Maggie
time.
Simpson. He thinks he's
Yes.
driving.
But I forgot that back in the day they used to put babies in the front seat, which is so crazy to me.
Oh yeah.
No car seat.
Yeah, and that he was just watching, how the cars work because John Travolta kidnapped him that one day, so he observed everything he did, and so at least the kid will be aware if he ever gets kidnapped. He'll at least be aware of his surroundings and hopefully be able
That's
to
right.
figure something out. But yeah, when that car got towed away and they're going chasing after the car, I'm like, I don't know how prominent child services was at this time, but there would definitely be a call made, right?
The baby was standing in the middle of the street.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
That's how they
scary.
got him. Yeah.
Where all of these cars are just smashing into each other around them. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
That's
was
terrifying.
I got anxiety watching that.
I'm I'm like having kind of a hard time, and maybe it's just like we don't just the tone of this kind of movie has shifted, but it's so funny to think about like this movie being made. You know, people go, "You could never make this movie today. It's too raw." I don't think you could make this movie today. It's like too silly.
It would be hard to find the right balance between it being a kids movie but also
Yeah.
appealing to adults.
Yeah.
And they would likely, because of technology, they would try to make the kids' mouths move.
hmm
The only
No,
way you
right.
could really do this is if you did a Pixar, if you did a Pixar-esque version of Rugrats.
hmm
You know what I mean? Like if you did like
Yeah.
their when Tommy and them are first born,
Yep.
and you kind of reconned it that way, that's the only way you can kind of pull this
Yeah.
off. It would have to be an animated medium. I don't think you could do this live action.
Because I think though you'd lose a lot of what makes this the strong parts of this film, right? Which are like their adult romance
Yep.
dynamic. Because it's kind of like an adult romance with a kid who talks grafted on, maybe as like, I don't know if that's the pitch and that's what got it sold, but like it's such a funny thing because outside of the like it's almost two movies because you're
Yes.
right, like
Yeah.
it like for it to influence Rugrats, you're like, yeah, but this also isn't a kids movie. This is like pitch, it feels like it's tonally otherwise for grown-ups.
Yes,
Yes.
for
For
sure. Jeez, Justin and I are over here echoing. We've been doing this podcast so long, we just
Long
finishing
time.
each other.
You're in sync.
We did get a Patriot thought on Look Who's Talking. Folks, remember you sign up at Patreon at patreon.com/medium popcorn. You're guaranteed to have your thought and review of that movie read on that episode. So Simba Jackson at Best Med Pod wrote, one of my favorite trilogy series. Interesting. Okay. Mickey had all the answers with none of the motor skills to back it up. Why did white men, John Travolta and John Stamos, maybe it's just the white Johns, love impersonating Elvis? Please do all three movies. You're going to hate the third one. Large popcorn. And I do remember hating the third one. So,
You know,
Simba's
and it's
right
funny
on that.
because I don't remember even though the second one we had that goofy dance scene and we
Yeah.
had the peepees and cacas with the talking toilet. I don't remember the second one being terrible.
The second
the
one's
third one is-
crazy, though.
The third
No,
one
I
is
mean-
Look Who's Talking Now, right? The second one
Yes.
is Look Who's Talking Too.
Yeah, the second one though gets kind of weird because there's like a weird burglar, and then there's like I think there's a brother-in-law that comes to stay with them, and then like the danger at the end is that they're in a fire. The apartment catches on
Whoa.
fire, and so Mikey has to get him and his little yeah, dude, it's like intense.
Wow.
Like so maybe this series actually is a lot better than we give it credit. Like we
yeah,
remember.
I've never seen the sequels. And then watching this one, I felt like their relationship like works and like her relationship with her family works and like it on a like a human level, all the grown-ups that are actually talking to each other, I'm like, I like what's going on here. This is fun.
It does work. It does work. But like let's share our final ratings. So Justin, break down our rating system, baby.
Stop calling me baby. So y'all, how we do this? We rate movies bags of popcorn, small, medium, large, and the XL for the exceptional.
That's
if a
right.
movie doesn't deserve any fresh, buttery popcorn, we throw it into the stale popcorn pile. We pile piles and piles of stale popcorn on top of it.
Mhm.
We sat down and we watched Look Who's Talking, a 1989 romantic comedy starring John Travolta and Kirstie Alley. So I say to you, Josh, what say you about this film?
I had a good time watching it. It flies by. It's like 94 or 96 minutes. I think like the talking baby, which is central to the movie, doesn't do a lot for me. So I can't go. I'm gonna rank this medium popcorn, nice hot butter on top.
Okay.
So on the
okay.
high side of a medium popcorn. Like this is one that if you find yourself watching it, you're gonna like you'll have a pleasant evening.
All right. Brennan?
Okay. I'm gonna give this a large. I'm gonna give it a large because I actually like to Josh's point. It's incredibly short. It's a tight hour and a half. I laughed a lot more than I thought I would. I remembered, and like even though the music cues kind of like speak to a traumatic theater going experience I had when I was 3.5 years old, I still like the soundtrack. It's a
I
very
really
like
like the
a
soundtrack.
really good like romantic comedy soundtrack. The chemistry of Kirstie Alley and John Travolta is great. I do agree that the kid stuff is unsettling. I'm curious to see if it works better in the second one because I think there's more kid stuff. I think Mikey interacts with
Yeah.
more children because even when he does the passerby with in the stroller with the other kids, that
Yep.
stuff was so weird. That was like,
Yeah.
this is what kids do when they're like passing each other. Like, it's
And
just very odd.
the other kid explaining what a dad is to him was
Yeah.
like, I was like, I don't think like it's fine.
Yeah.
We get it.
I mean, it's just trying to be like kids actually know more than we think they do,
Yep.
even when they're babies. But
Totally.
I don't believe it because I see some kids with blank stares and like, there's nothing going on. Up
Yeah, the kid
Uh,
doesn't know anything.
Justin, what's your rating? You know what I'm talking about, Justin. You see those looks.
I feel like you're making a play on my children.
No. Jackson, I told you, Jackson's always plotting. Josh, Justin's oldest, his name is Jackson. And it just sometimes you look at Jackson, you're like, oh, he plotting something. Like
How
there's
old
almost
is
too
he?
much going on.
He's 5 now, but when he
Oh,
was
sure.
I think it was like 1 is when
He just looked like those gears were turning.
yeah, he every time he looked at Brandon, he was just like, there's something wrong with this guy.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'm gonna give this a large. It is one of those films where I thought this was going to be a hard night, but I actually really enjoyed it.
Oh, Jesus.
I actually really enjoyed it. I'm like, oh boy, look who's talking. And then like as I watched it, I was just like, man, this is actually a really fun movie. It's a sweet story. I love the chemistry between John Travolta and Kirstie Alley. And it was just, I mean, yeah, the baby stuff is weird. I found it less weird the moment the baby was born.
Yes,
And the womb
for
baby
sure.
was cool. That was a lot.
And
That
I
was
do. I'm sorry to keep chiming in. I do
No.
think the moment when Mikey, age 1 or whatever, looks at John Travolta and says out loud "Dada" at the end when they get together, I'm like, okay, I get it. You got me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that was sweet.
you did it. You pulled it off.
This is what he's been waiting for. This is what we've all been waiting for. That's the payoff.
Yep.
Wait, but how's
All
the
right,
second
I'll go
one
up
work?
to large too. You guys are large. I'm large on this.
Wait, but if Mikey starts speaking out loud at the end, why is he still having an internal monologue with the sister in the second one?
He's still thinking.
Oh,
He's still
I
got
think-
schemes.
I think it's a thing where
Kids can talk telepathically.
yeah, they can talk to each other. Like kids can talk to each other.
You've been add look who's talking to the list. We gotta dig into this.
Yeah,
Like, now I'm like so curious.
We need more now.
Yeah, we gotta explore this. But Josh, if you want to come back and help us break down the sequels, feel free to do so.
Let's do it.
Josh, please tell the listeners how they can follow you. And I know you
Sure.
just recently recorded a special. Congratulations. So,
Thank you.
yeah, just let
I'm
them know
excited.
what's going on.
Excited to get that edited, see where it lands. I am. If you're looking for updates on me, joshgondelman.com is my website. I'm at Josh Gondelman across social media, and I have a newsletter that I send out. It's a Substack that I email every Monday. It's free. It's called That's Marvelous, and you can get it at joshgondelman.substack.com, and it's full of like pep talks and jokes, and then you can find out about all the stuff I'm doing, live tour dates and stuff.
Awesome. Definitely check out Josh's stuff. As always, you know, you can follow me at Brodo_Blackens on Instagram. And you can follow the show at Medium P Podcast on all social media platforms, including TikTok. We do post on there occasionally when I'm not intimidated by all these really scary, like, man, the attention span of young people, it terrifies me. But that's old man Brandon over here talking. Justin, how can people follow you as well as support the show financially if they choose to do so?
Guys, you can follow me at J Brown Did It on all the socials, but you can support this show and help us grow the show at Patreon, patreon.com/medium popcorn. We have $2, $5, $10, and $15 packages, our entire backlog on Patreon. We got bonus episodes, bonus shows, The Rant, what I'm watching, Tati's Take. There's so much on Patreon. That's where you need to be. And again, that is patreon.com/medium popcorn.
There we go. Josh, thanks so much for joining us for this insane
Thanks
episode.
for having me.
But a movie that we surprisingly all really enjoyed.
I had a blast talking about it. I enjoyed watching it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so
sometimes
much.
we feel like that's not going to happen, and then we get surprised.
Yeah, this was a pleasant surprise because, like I said, I was traumatized, but also I was like, oh, it wasn't too bad revisiting this moment.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Josh. And folks, we will talk to you all next week.
Later.
Medium popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me. And Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So